Hey, welcome to Journey Online. Thanks for watching with us today. It's a big weekend around Journey. I'll be honest, we've been working for a long time to get to this weekend. It's one that we've planned for, we've prayed about, we've looked forward to, and we're going to celebrate for a long time, so you've landed on a good day. There's words that just kind of grow in our world today. There's just words that you've heard, but then they develop into something new. I'll give you a great one, the word influencer. I want to talk about influence a little bit today. Influencer is a thing that meant one thing before and it often means something very different now. I'll tell you what, I'll start with this. Here's an interesting statistic. Studies say that 54% of young people, and let's just put that in context and say that's kind of our Gen Zers, and some of you who are watching are going to land right in that, would rather be an influencer than a doctor, teacher, or firefighter. That's not a shot at anybody. It's just saying this role as an influencer in today's world has become really magnetic to a lot of people. And an influencer can be anybody from any role. It can be somebody who is saying, I'm going to take a more prominent role. I'm going to be viewed and heard. People are going to notice what I'm saying, what I'm doing, and it's going to influence other people, simply put. Now, if you want to be an influencer, that's just an empty word. There's not a great definition for it sometimes. But if you want to be one, I want to give you some hints. So if you're watching this today, I want to give you this is free. You don't pay any extra for this. Let me give you 10 quick hints for that. One, you need to get a ring light because apparently no one can take you seriously in bad lighting. Bad lighting, you're a nobody. Good lighting, who knows who you could be. So that's the first step. That's a cheap way. Go to Amazon, get your ring light. You're off and running. Let me give you another one. Perfect the candid pose. It takes about 47 tries to look natural, so get used to trying to look that way. The candid pose is everything. If it looks scripted, if it looks planned, nobody's going to watch. Let me give you a third one. Find a niche, however you want to say it, wherever you're from. You can be a coffee influencer, you can be a dog influencer, a toenail polish influencer, which is one I've strongly considered myself because my awesome toes. It doesn't matter, but just be one, and when you're that, own it. You just live that large. Here's a fourth one that'll help you out. Post daily, maybe hourly, sometimes more than that. Because if people don't see you eat your lunch, here's the question we have to ponder. Did you really eat it at all? The fifth one, master the hashtag game. Hashtag blessed, sponsored, hashtag I love this brand I don't actually use, but you've got to have, if you know hashtag game, no influence. Trust me on this one. Got to learn to use it well. Sixth one, count your followers. That's a big deal. Your worth goes up and down with that little number. As a lot of people use it as a way of introducing, hi, I'm Chris and I'm an influencer and I have this many followers. That means I'm somebody. Little number, nobody, big number. You better believe you're a somebody now. 7, engage with comments, especially the trolls, because arguing with strangers at 2 in the morning, it's the true measure of influence. So if you're going to be a successful influencer, you've got to kick in on that. And then go viral. Now listen, there are some parameters. If you go viral for doing something stupid, at times it kind of defeats the purpose. Sometimes that's the only thing that people can do to go viral is do something embarrassing or ridiculous, but you got to go viral. You got to get a lot of eyes on your subject matter. The 9th one is sell something. If you're going to be an influencer, you need something to sell because you can monetize. Sell something. You can sell a protein shake, teeth whitener, leggings, which once again goes back to my thoughts. You can sell your soul for whatever you want, but you got to sell something. And then the last, but certainly not the least, repeat all of those first 9 until you're officially famous or until you've so burned out on it you quit social media completely. But what I am saying, if you want to be an influencer, there's 10 easy steps that you can take. We live in a world where influencers are just people who have something to say and get noticed. I think maybe the question for us, that's kind of silly. The question for us today would be, are we being influenced or are we becoming an influence? I think sometimes we're being influenced in ways that we don't even notice. A lot of us would say, I don't pay any attention to any of that. You know, over 80% of people will make a purchase in 2025 that the primary catalyst was an influencer somewhere. Something we saw on social media, some kind of commercial, which is really what a lot of social media is. And we go, oh, that stuff doesn't affect me at all. 80% of Americans will make a purchase this year based on an influencer's promotion of it. It's how sometimes it gets on our mind, even if we don't give them a lot of credibility. But here's the bigger question. In life, beyond just our social media world, are you being influenced more by our culture, by the world we're in, or are you an influence in it? And a lot of us wish we had more influence, but we're not going to go the social media route. And so sometimes being an influence is a hard thing to develop. It's really where we're wanting to land on this fourth part of our series, Everyone Matters. It's where we want to land today, is how can we be an influence? How do we make sure that we're becoming more than we are being moved in our own side? Now, I'll just tell you, if in the influencer social media world, there's nobody who over the last few years, and certainly more over the last few weeks, has become more prominent in that than Charlie Kirk. If you live on or near this planet, you obviously know who that is and some things about him. It is everywhere. It doesn't even have to be on social media. Anywhere you go, there's a discussion about Charlie Kirk. And his role as one who decided, I can be influenced or I can be an influencer, and waded out into the world and has influenced millions. Many of you who are watching this would be that, certainly myself as well. His life, his death, and everything that surrounds it has become the picture of what an influencer can, could, should, would do. And then with a horrible ending, and that has moved so many people in our country, and moved people, frankly, on either side. Whether you agree with his stance spiritually, as many of us would, whether you agree with his stance politically, which kind of overlaps with some of his things, which many would, many wouldn't. Whatever your view on life is, he has influenced, he has moved the discussion. He has not just discussed it, he moved it out into real life. He said, I don't want to be influenced, I want to become an influence, and he has. I tell you, the weird thing that spins off of that, because this is what happens in the influencer world, then you've got people, many of which who have no clue of which they speak, who said words like this. If you go to a church and they don't talk about Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago, right after his death, then you should never go to that church. That's an odd statement. It's an odd statement to believe that God puts on every pastor's heart in the world the very same thing for that day, but everybody can have an opinion. As a matter of fact, I talked to a friend of mine who watched 2 weeks ago, right after Charlie Kirk's death. We had a panel discussion with some new friends, and we were discussing how they see God, how they see Jesus, how they see life, scripture, all of those things. And we were learning, and the purpose of it is so that we can become more of an influence in our world. I called a friend who I knew had watched that, or he called me and said, hey, I watched, that was so interesting. Chris, way to go for you guys doing that. And then he had this question, are your people really upset that you guys didn't make it a Charlie Kirk day? You didn't discuss that a lot. And I was a little surprised. I don't think his was a judgment. I think it was just a question because he hangs out in that world. And I told him, I said, no, I don't think our people are upset by that. I think most of them are aware or awake enough in their life to recognize we didn't spend 30 minutes talking about Charlie Kirk. We literally spent the entire morning doing what Charlie Kirk has been doing for years. Instead of saying, what's wrong with this world and look what happened and oh, this is a tragedy, and I agree with both of those things. Instead of that, talking about it, we literally did. I think if Charlie Kirk were alive to say something today, he would say, I don't want to create more discussion about how bad the world is and how broken it is and theorize on what happened and who did it. I think he would say, don't let everybody get lost in that. This is about us becoming an influence. And I told my friend, I think most of our people in our journey world, because they're pretty wide awake people, would look and go, that's exactly what he would applaud. You weren't saying what he said, you were doing what he did. And that really is our philosophy. The bigger question is, are we being influenced? Are we becoming influenced? I'll tell you, the original influencer and the one who spoke on this subject, his name was Jesus. Maybe you've heard of him. Has a book, tons of sales, lots of quotes. He was an influencer in his day. And he talks to us about it in Matthew chapter 5. He starts this message, this sermon, this probably the most prominent message he ever gave. He did it on the side of a mountain, so we call it the Sermon on the Mount. And he starts out by saying a whole list of things. If you want a life that is good, if you want a life that is happy, if you want a life that is filled with more satisfaction, more peace, more comfort, more all of those things, he said, I'm going to tell you how to have this blessed, this happy, this fulfilled life. And so he wasn't talking theoretical, he was talking the practical side. If you want to have a life of influence, a life that matters, that has purpose to it, here's the ways you can do it. And then right when he finishes that, he doesn't really shift gears. He takes that and says, if you want that and if you have that, here's what I want from you. And he's talking to people who are followers of his right now, primarily. As the people gathered around and he's teaching them, and he starts with these words. He said, you, those who are following me, you are the salt of the earth. Salt preserves. Salt flavors. Salt brings something to the table. Salt adds to. He said, you are the salt of the earth, and that's what you're supposed to do. In a society, in a world where there's all kinds of darkness, and there's all kinds of evil, and there's all kinds of wrong, my goal is not for you to be angry about it. My goal is for you to help change it, to influence it. I want you to be salt. And then he keeps going. We drop off there, pick back up. You, same people, are the light of this world. And he gives this little example of salt and light. With light, he goes, for instance, a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. I want you to have influence. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. That would be ridiculous. Instead, it's placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. And he's saying to them, I don't want you to be discussers of good. I don't want you to be analyzers. I don't want you to know a lot. I want you to literally put that into play. I don't want this to be a call to consider. I want you to move. I want you to take next steps, is the way we would put it around Journey. And as he began talking to them, he becomes so specific. Matter of fact, he finishes that where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. And he really draws a huge line in the sand. And this is the last thing that the religious people expected a religious guy to talk about. He's not saying, here's how I want you to believe. Here's how I want you to think. Here's your perspective. He's saying, listen, if you follow me, I want you to put those things into play, and your good deeds will shine, and everyone will recognize me because of you. If he were to sum it up in kind of my words, true followers are to be salty and shiny in a world that's often tasteless and dark. That our job, our role for every person who calls themselves a follower of Jesus is that we should be preserving and flavoring our society, not just angry that it's not. Sometimes I feel like we would rather yell about or yell at the darkness than try to make it better and light a light. And really, our Everyone Matters for the last 3 weeks in building to this and building for the next 4 weeks past this is built to say, hey, it's okay to be frustrated by the condition of our world. It's okay to be bothered by things that seem so evil or so egregious, but if that's where it stops, you've missed Jesus' point. As people whose lives have been impacted and influenced by him, our job is to become salt and light in a world that's tasteless and dark and could sure use some help. In the end, that's the goal. Jesus went on over the course of his time on earth and had so many discussions with people where he gave this as an example. I think the one that always strikes me the most would be a story about a woman who he met while he was traveling through a place that Jews typically didn't travel. And she was at the old place in the historical place, Jacob's Well. And she's standing there in the middle of a hot day when people normally don't do that. And she and he encounter one another, and they have this incredible conversation in John chapter 4. Open your Bible, read through it. I think it is the best interchange that Jesus has with anybody while he's on this earth. It is so filled with insight. It is so filled with meaning. He gets with her and says these words to her. Why are you here? I think he already understood, but he wanted her to understand that he understood. Why are you here at this point? And she begins to share her story. We learned last week that when we notice people's stories, that people move from projects to feeling like people. And he did that so perfectly with her. Why are you here? And she said, why are you talking to me? People like you don't talk to people like me. And he told her, I talk to people like you because you matter to me. And as she began to explain her story, and he began to explain that he knew, there's this powerful exchange between them. And for the first time in her life, she found purpose. She found somebody of influence who cared about her. And what he did was he invested his minutes and he invested his attention. He made his life open to her. He noticed her story, and then he helped her engage in next steps. As he began to share that there is hope for you, the water you're looking for here is going to help you for a minute, but what you're looking for in your soul is a lot deeper than that. And I know you're thirsty for more. And I'm just telling you, I think most of us and I think most of our world says, I want more than what I have. I want life to have more meaning, more satisfaction, more purpose. I want to feel like it's more than just the treadmill of hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, so you can get through, so you can start again and hurry up some more. And I think as people who have been influenced by God, our job is to influence others and to be that way. He finishes talking with her, and that's not the most incredible part of the story. His interaction is mind-boggling. He is so wise, and he is so patient, and he is so tender, but also so direct with her. And it's this balance of strength and caring all at once. It is like a how-to. It's a TED Talk on how to care for people well. And then it finishes with this little piece, and we'll kind of fast forward to this. It says she went back to her whole community, and many Samaritans, that's where she was from the village, believed in Jesus. That she went from somebody who was influenced by Jesus to someone that became an influence, which is so remarkable, because if you had asked her 2 hours before, who is the least influential person in your entire village, she would say her. She was an outcast. She was the one that everybody whispered about. But all of a sudden, she became the biggest influence for good in her entire community. And notice what it says. Many believe because of what the woman said. What did she say? He told me everything I ever did. It's not true. He didn't tell her everything she had done. What he did is listen to her story and relate to her where she was. And when he did, she said, I don't know if you've ever had this happen when you're talking to somebody, or sometimes when I go to church, or sometimes when I watch a video of something, or sometimes I listen to a podcast, and I almost feel like, man, they've been reading my mail. Sometimes when I watch something on relationships and they're talking about how to have a better marriage, and sometimes when I hear them, I'll go, wow, that's right where I am. That is so helpful. Like you've been listening at my house. You got a camera in my living room or something. She felt that way with him. And as a result, when she went back, because what she said, the least influential person in the world, when her heart had been changed by God, became an influencer. She became somebody who made a significant difference in her world. Here's maybe the way we could say it. When her story, all of her past, all of her hurts, all of her pain, all of her stuff, when it intersected with God's story, when she met Jesus, when she found forgiveness, when she found hope, when she realized that where I've come from doesn't necessarily dictate where I'm going. when she allowed the full force of the God of the universe to care for her. The one who had every right to condemn her chose not to. And as a result, when her story intersected with God's story, she realized she had a whole new story, that her life was changed. She didn't go back and tell people as her responsibility. Jesus didn't say, all right, now, woman at the well, whatever your name is, here's what we're going to do. I've helped you out. Put your hand right here. Everybody put your hands in the huddle. Now, I want you to go do that right now. On 3, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and I want you to sprint back there, and here's how I want you to do it. I want you to quote the 3 things I said to you. I want you to argue over the 4 things they may not get. He said, what I want you to do is I just want you to live a different life. And he didn't say 1, 2, 3, go. She turned, and because the difference he had made in her life, she couldn't, ready for this great grammatical masterpiece, she couldn't not tell people what had happened in her life. She didn't have a religious experience. She didn't change in her basic belief concept. She experienced the forgiveness and the hope that came through Jesus, and as a result, she couldn't stay quiet about it. You know why she told the other people? Because she couldn't help but tell the other people. Because it was that fresh and it was that real in her. It wasn't I had an argument or I had a discussion or I had a discourse. It was literally I met someone who cared. And while he cared, he offered me something that nobody else could offer. And I'll be honest, it's what I've been looking for in other people, in other situations, in other interactions my whole life. I finally found what I needed. I'm sick, and I finally found the cure. And when you finally find the cure, the natural thing is, as we have been influenced, it is to influence. That is how life is supposed to work. So here's how it works in our world today. If you want to be a social media influencer, you have to build a platform. That could be YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. Makes your little world go around. You got to build a platform. And then you got to get followers. That's the whole goal. I've got to accrue enough followers, and that's how you get paid. The more people that follow, the bigger check they cut. The more views, the more likes, the more whatever it is for you, the most shares. Boy, that would be a big one. Build a platform and get followers. And Jesus came along and said that's not exactly the way it's intended to be. Hey, and if you're a social media influencer, I'm not shooting at you. I'm just saying if that's all that life is, you ain't got a lot of life. That's not why God came, is so we can build a bigger platform for ourselves and get more followers. Matter of fact, the opposite of that would be this. God has given every person a platform. That woman who stood at the well, she had a platform, and the platform was her changed life. Her platform was, I just want to tell you what I've experienced. Somebody can argue with what I think. Somebody can argue with what I believe. But I'm just going to tell you, whoever you are watching this, maybe you're a person who has a lot of questions about God. And maybe you and I aren't in the same spot as far as what we believe. And man, we love that. Around Journey, we so welcome and applaud that. But I can tell you this, you may not agree with what I think or what I believe, but you can't deny and you can't argue what God's done in my life. I've experienced that. I'm just telling you, as someone who can get so prideful and so self-consumed in what I know and what I think, here's what I found. I could find a way to promote me. I could find a way to push toward my goals. But in the end, the harder I work at that, the emptier I feel. I can have moments of really high emotions and go, I'm killing it, I'm doing it. But I'll be honest with you, in the end, they leave me feeling empty. And then God. And in Him, you know what I found? I found some hope for me. I found some stuff for my soul, not just for the adrenaline push of being a little bit more whatever. And you say, I'm not sure I understand that. I'm not sure I communicate it well. I'm just telling you this, what God has done in my life, in my mind, in my relationships, in my soul, to bring peace to a guy who struggles to find peace. I wish I could say it better, and you can argue what I think or what I believe, but you can't argue with me of what God's done in me. I just wish I could explain it better. Maybe it would make more sense to people. But in the end, God has given every person a platform. He has you. And with your platform comes some opportunity to influence. And you don't do it by getting more followers. It's just like He said, when you're salt and light, your good deeds is what will point people toward God. So be a follower. It's not build a platform and get followers. It is God has given you a platform as someone who chooses to follow him, and your only job is to be a follower, to do what followers do, because in the end, people will listen to your reasoning, but they'll watch your life. With our panel we had up here 2 weeks ago, over and over people said, and they were super bright in this, and they were so super honest in this. They said, I'll tell you more about what you believe about God by the way you act and what you say, and until I see the way you act, I don't listen to what you say, nor should someone. We shouldn't expect that. I think there's brilliance in that, and in the end, we have to understand that God has given us a platform. A bunch of years ago, up in the northeast of our country, off the shores of Massachusetts, there was, back in that day, they had lighthouses they would put there, and often the tide and the storms would push boats into the shoreline, and the shoreline is jagged and rocky, and over again when storms came, and when the nights were really dark and the winds were howling, boats would crash and people would die time after time after time. Eventually, there were so many of those stories, a group of people kind of banded together and said, I think we can help with this. As a matter of fact, they built little huts on the shoreline, and they kept little lights that were focused out in, and especially when the storms came, they would start watching. And when there would be a boat in distress and it was moving too close to the rocks, they would send out the word, and people would literally go out into the storm, into the water, and they would help rescue the people as the boats got too close and hit the rocks. It went on for really weeks, months, and years. They were this little group of people who banded together to be not the kind you put in your mouth, not the circle that you have on a boat. They literally became lifesavers. It's what they did. They even had a motto. Everyone has to go out, but not everyone has to come back. They were a little bit aggressive in their mindset. They just go, listen, we're not wimps in this. This is what we do. Hey, listen, we're going out and we hope we're coming back, but we're not going to sit by and just watch people get wrecked. Well, over the course of time, more and more people noticed, and they saved more and more lives. Eventually, some people noticed and said, we ought to organize this, and it's what eventually turned into the United States Coast Guard. And little by little, they quit sitting out on the water's edge and watching. They handed it over to the professionals. And little by little, it became the job of the professionals. And the people who had always done it lost a little piece of their purpose for existence. And they wanted to keep meeting, and as a matter of fact, some of them still meet today. But instead of saving lives, they often meet and have dinner together, and they discuss the storms. They discuss the wreck. They discuss life. They discuss all of those things. They're good people who are well-intentioned, that over time went from a group that saved lives to people who sat and discussed people who saved lives. They were people who would go headlong toward the storm for hurting people, and now they became people who sit and discuss people who do the same. They give humanitarian awards, and it's a good thing. They notice good work from others, but something happened. Instead of having a purpose for existence, now they discuss people who have a purpose for their existence. They often discuss how much better it used to be, and how they could do it better if it was them doing it, but it's not them doing it because now they sit and watch. They've moved from people of great influence, great life change, and they become people who are still well-intentioned, big-hearted people, but truth be known, they watch from the sidelines and try to applaud or critique the game that's being played. I'm afraid for many of us in our life, that is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves, not that we're not concerned, but concerned enough to have the discussion, concerned enough to watch what's going on and comment on it from time to time. They had this one little motto that they went by. There's always someone watching. Someone is always watching. and everyone is always willing. That was their motto, and that's what kept them up at night. That's what they explained to their families. When their family was like, "Where are you going? Don't you know this is dangerous?" They said, "Someone's always watching." And when there was a storm, they sent word out and everybody moved. Someone is always watching. We can never have a time as a light in this world. We're supposed to see what's headed our way, what's happening around us. We're supposed to care. And when the alarm is sounded, and I'm sounding the alarm, that we need influence in a dark world and we have choices. We can sit and complain about it. We can scream at the darkness in our world, or we can actually be a light. We get to choose. And around Journey in our world, we've just chosen that we want to be people of influence, not because we're so important, not because we've got it all figured out, and not because my voice has to be heard over everyone else's. Just the opposite. My goal is that I'll let God so involve himself in my life when his story and my story intersect, he gives me a new story. And my new story is, here's what God has done for me. And I'm far from perfect, but my goal is that my good deeds, my care, my investment will shine and it'll point people toward Jesus. Not toward me, not toward my platform. My platform is his story in my life. And my job's not to get followers, but to be a follower. And as I do that, I think that is where I find my greatest purpose. When I feel like investing in someone who matters to me, someone that I love and that I care about, and not because I've got it all done, not because I've arrived, because I care. I want to be a better friend. I want to be a better influence in a dark world. And when that happens, I feel like there's a reason for me to be here other than busyness. Beyond survive until I die, and then someday in the sweet by and by there's something better. I don't want that. I want better now. I want to live what God put me here to live out. At our campus this weekend, we'll be giving out under the seat of everyone who arrives. We'll have one of these stones. In the next year or so, we're going to be building a building, and in one of the walls of that building, it'll be built with these stones, with about 2.5 tons of these stones. And this weekend, we're inviting every person who attends with us, and I would invite you to right now, if you would take a minute and maybe even ask God, is there somebody in my life who can be a one? Every one matters. Here's what we say first. Everyone matters. You matter, and I matter to God. And because we all matter to God, we all need to have people who matter to us. Because everyone is somebody that matters to them. It's somebody's son or their daughter or their mother or their father. It's their friend. It's their aunt, their uncle, their cousin. It's the person you care about. And that's the way we're supposed to live our life. And we're putting these out and asking people, would you choose one person in your life, at least one person who you can focus on, who you can open your life toward, who you can be involved and invested in having influence, once again, not to convert them, not to make them your project, but just to care for, to pray for. And we're using these, and we'll write a name, just one little name, not their name, address, phone number, social security, and bank account, just their name. Maybe it won't even be for you. It's really personal, and you might not put their name. You might put that nickname or something that means something to you that might not be something to everybody else. Matter of fact, while you're watching, you can do that. If you're on Facebook, you can just comment if you want to put a name there. Or if you're on YouTube or watching in a big place in your home on a big TV, you can just take and drop that down and put a comment with that name. Or maybe you don't want that name to be public in front of whoever is watching. If you want to just send that name to us, Chuck is our guy who will keep track of that all day long. If you want to send him an email at Chuck, that's pretty easy to spell, chuck@ourjourney.com. If you'll just send that to him, we'll put that name on one of these rocks, and they're going to be displayed someday. And one by one, God's going to play out stories because lives are going to intersect with his story. And when they do, people are going to have a whole new story, just like God did in my life. And hopefully he's done in some of yours. And together, there's going to be hundreds of those stories that are told. We would love for you to engage with that. Let me just give you a couple of thoughts, and I'll let you go. First of all, when it comes to finding your one, this is beautiful communication. You can have more than one. That makes sense, right? Questions I've been getting. Can we have more than one? And I just want to say, yes, you can. Hey, we're a church. Yes is the answer. Could we give twice in a week? Well, yeah, we'll allow that. Can you have more than one? Yes, and here's the encouragement. Have at least one person who's local. For many of us, when we think of that person that we care for and our heart is moved for and we pray for and we so care about, often it's a family member or a friend that may be far away. Don't let that go, man. That needs to be where you are. God will put that on your heart because that's somebody you love so deeply. So don't write that off. Please let that be one of your ones. But I want to challenge you with this, and this is just us being real. Have one that you may not see that person very often. You may do some external communications, but you're not going to get face to face with them very often. Keep them in your prayers. Keep them in your time. Keep your investment there. But make sure you have a one who's local. Someone who you're going to continue opening your life to. Who you're going to continue to notice their story. Who you're going to continue to engage in next steps, next conversations, next investments. That's what a one life is. It's when we open and notice and engage. It's intentional. It's on purpose. We don't stumble into it. So make sure you have at least one person. Send that to us. Make sure you have at least one who's local. And in the end, what you're committing to do is I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to ask God to put this burden on my heart that I can't let go of. And every day I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to pray that they'll have a great life. I'm going to pray for them to have great relationships. I'm going to pray for them to be open to conversations about things that would help them in the long run. I'm not going to be their answer, and they're not going to be my project. But what I am going to be is I'm going to be the world's best friend to that human being. I'm going to care for them. I'm going to open my life to their world. I'm not just going to invite them into mine. And I'm going to notice their story, because stories are what turns projects into people. And as I do that, I'm going to care about the way they think. I'm going to care about what they believe. I'm not going to ask them a question so I can then shut them up and tell them what I really want them to know. I'm going to engage with their life. I'm going to notice their story, and then I'm going to engage in next steps. And sometimes that's as simple as I'm going to invite them to church. Sometimes God's going to give me an opportunity while we're out fishing, or while we're hanging out together at the golf course, or while we're having dinner together, or whatever it is for you. While we're at the kids' party and they're doing their thing, God's going to open up conversations. And my next step may be to share a little bit more of what God's done in my life. Everyone matters. You don't have to reach everyone. But God put us here with influence because we need to reach someone. We need to be a better friend, and we need to be more light in dark places. And instead of being angry about all the darkness, wouldn't it be great if each one of us would just light a little bit more light and put it in places where it can offer hope, where it can offer a future, where it can offer answers to people who are trying so hard to find a life that matters. And we can do that. You can do that. And our job as a church is we can help. So would you be a part of that? We're going to pray and we'll let you go. Over the next weeks, we'll begin to tell stories of all that God is doing as a result. Hey, thanks for being a part of that with us. So God, help us. We're not good enough, strong enough, smart enough. And people don't need more of me. They don't need more of my opinion. What they need is you to change who I am. And as I do, and I share life with them, that it'll be obvious there's something going on bigger than me. Would you help us get out of our huddles, out of our little safety zones? Would you help us care about people who are worthy of being cared for? Somebody is waiting on somebody like me, or like the people who are watching this. And would you help us have influence in our world? We can't fix everything that's out there, but we can be salty and we can be shiny in the world where we've been put. Help us, like the woman who stood and talked to Jesus, to run toward our community. And to be able to say, he told me things that I needed to hear about me. And as a result, it's changed my life. And as people move toward you, we will applaud you, not us. Help us use our platform and become followers. And get over ourselves enough to quit looking to be the one who's followed. We ask it in your name. Amen. Hey, thanks for watching.